Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. So today is a really special creation. So I've had a request from my nephew Haydn, and he wants a new painting for his bedroom. He's had a short stay in hospital and this is going to just brighten his day up. And he's given me 4 colours. So I'm going to use those colours. I'll take you down in a minute to see those colours and talk more about the technique. But Haydn, this is for you. This is your video for your own creation. Everyone, let's see what we can create. So these are the colours that Haydn has picked out. He wanted a red, white and blue with a purple. And there's a reason behind that, but I'll let you know what that is in the comments below. And these are the colours that I've picked. So I am using all of Amsterdam brand. You can see that I've got a titanium white, an ultramarine violet and a carmine. So they're the colours. I have mixed all of the paints with a pouring medium. 1 part paint, 1 part water, 3 parts pouring medium. And you can see there the consistency. Drizzles off the spatula, leaves a slight trace and then disappears. So they're my colours mixed up. I'm going to use white as the base with these 3 colours on top. And these are the canvases here. I'm going to do 2. And I'm also doing a swipe. So I'm going to use a cell activator. That's paint and Floetrol. 1 part paint to 4 parts Australian Floetrol. That's going to be my cell activator combination. I'm going to use my palette knife to swipe over the top of these 3 colours on a white base. I'm excited for this. Haydn, here's your colours. Let's go. So first of all, I'm placing the white paint on the canvas. I've just poured the paint from the cup onto the canvas and I'm going to pick each one up and just swirl it around just to spread that paint out across that surface area a little bit more before we continue with the process. So I said from the outset, this was the technique that I was going to do. I was going to do a swipe across these 2 canvases. But I do have a surprise in store, so stay tuned and watch the full process because I might just add to this creation, but in a different way. So let me show you how I'm going to do this swipe and then I'm going to talk about what I'm going to add on later on. I am just going to add the colours to the canvas, one by one, the blue, the red and the purple. And then I'm going to swipe over using my cell activator to create some cells and some lacing. You'll see here that I'm using a torch and that's just to pop any air bubbles. When you mix your paints up, whether it's with just water or with a pouring medium, as you stir in that paint with that water or that pouring medium, you're adding air to that mixture. So that's why I use a torch, just to pop those air bubbles. So now for the fun part. This is the cell activator. I'm just placing it on my palette knife and I'm going to take the palette knife and balance that on top of the paint that I've already layered. I'm not going to press down with any pressure. I'm just going to allow that palette knife to touch the surface of that paint, and I'm just going to slowly drag that palette knife across the canvas. And as I do that, you'll see that it's leaving a trail of cells and lacing. I'll take you in just so you can see a close-up of this before we continue. But I'm going to use this palette knife and cell activator for both canvases, and I'm just going to swipe across. And it's that cell activator that creates those cells and lacing that you see. And there's those cells just popping up. I clean my palette knife off before I continue with the swipe. But remember, if you want any of the details about the consistencies, the colours that I'm using, please check out the description box below. So let me show you a close-up of those cells, and you can see here how all those colours have made those what we call like cells or lacing. They look like bubbles. But I love this colour combination. Haydn, you've picked some great colours. I'm really enjoying using these colours. And now it's about just spreading that paint out across that full surface area of both canvases. And all I'm doing is I'm picking up the canvases, I'm tilting them from side to side, and by tilting them, I'm allowing that paint to move to that surface area that I need covering. So I'm just going to take my time to ensure that the paint covers all those areas and the edges themselves. And when I'm doing this, it's also about looking at that overall composition, that balance of that white on the background versus the colours that are on top. And it's about not rushing the process. Tilting from side to side moves the paint across that surface area, but I'm also tilting to have a look at the overall composition. I'm trying to create a pattern on top that's pleasing to the eye, that draws the eye in, but also gives you that sense of space across that canvas, whilst also showing that detail of that cell and lacing effect using that cell activator. So I'm just going to finish up with the composition. I'm using my torch to pop any air bubbles, and I'm going to take you in for a closer look at both of these canvases. Now, I said right at the start I had a surprise, and it's about when you immerse yourself in that creation process, when those creativity juices are flowing, just allow yourself to be in that moment. And when I was in this moment, I really wanted to carry on. I didn't want to just stop at these two canvases. And I actually made 4 paintings using the same colours. And all 4 paintings will be on their way to my nephew, on their way to Haydn for when he gets out of hospital. And I know that they're going to take pride of place in his room. But this one was one of my favourite techniques. I'm going to do liquid puddles on the canvas. So I've got a little bit of white. I'm going to add the red, the blue and the purple. And then I'm going to throw in a marble on top of those puddles and tilt the marble from side to side to create some really interesting lines. So I'll leave you now so you can see the rest of this process, and I'm going to take you in for a closer look and then explain what I'm going to do on my 4th canvas. So I wanted to finish up with a fourth painting, again using the same colours, but within the blue I have mixed in 2 drops of silicone oil. And we really know what effect that's going to have. That's going to create some different cells, completely different to the ones that I've used when I swipe, and I can't wait to show you the effect. But they really come into their own when I add that heat from the torch, not only to pop the air bubbles, but to help with that paint reaction and that silicone reaction. So I'm just puddling the paints into a cup. I'm going to pour the cup directly onto the canvas. I'll tilt it out so that paint covers that full surface area, and then we'll use the torch to make those cells appear. And there we go. So using that torch helps those cells pop up, and that's because we've added that silicone oil. Let me take you in now for a closer look at all 4 canvases. This is the wet version for each. I think this one here might actually be my favourite one. I like that balance of the colour, but I really love all those lines that marble made. This was one of the originals, so these 2 were my intended canvases. I then went on to this one with the marble, and then this was the 4th and final piece, where I puddled the paints into a cup, added some silicone oil, tipped the paint out of the cup onto the canvas, and used my torch to help those cells appear on top. So this is the dry one. They've all been drying. They've dried really well. They're very vibrant. Once they're fully dry, I will add a coating of varnish, and then they're going to be sent on their way to my nephew, and Haydn will have them for his bedroom. But I'm going to leave you now with some close-ups. I really hope you've enjoyed this, and Haydn, I know you've already seen these and you love them already, and I can't wait for you to see them in person. A big thank you to each and every one of you for joining me today. I hope you've had fun, and this is just an example of allow your creativity to flourish, because I intended to just do 2, but I ended up with 4. Thank you so much for being here. I hope I get to see you again in the next video. And whatever you're up to creatively, I hope you're having a great week. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you soon. Bye.